Hey everyone, this is Bunny. Today we're painting a dragon. So the trick when you're painting dragons is to make a decision early on about what basic color scheme you want. So I've decided he's going to be varying shades of gray. So to get these varying shades of gray, I'm starting with, this is called a Payne's gray that I lightened a little bit. And the idea here is that I'm going to slowly lighten this color. Now I'm going to be using the same color the entire time. All the different colors that are going to go on him, all the different grays anyway, are going to be various shades of this one gray. Now this Payne's gray that I'm using is kind of purpley. It's not purple, it's a gray, but it's a purpley type of gray. So this particular gray has a lot of purple sheen to it. So I'm going to start with this darker gray here along the spines, and not the webbing of the wings, just the spines. And that is, in general, the color scheme I'm going to go for. Okay? And as I go, I am going to slowly add a bunch more white to this particular gray. So it's all one color, okay? He's going to be all one color, just different shades of that one color. And then I'm going to use a final like bone color for his horns and stuff. But to start, we are going to just stick with this Payne's gray that I'm just going to continue to lighten. So the original Payne's gray color, I've already lightened it because that was way too dark. I didn't want to be almost black. But all I'm going to do, I'm literally just going to keep adding white. Okay? That's literally my entire plan here. It's just keep adding white because then you're going to stay in that same color vein. So you kind of have to decide how many color changes you're going to have. So when I'm doing dragons like this, not like the wyvern we did last week, but when we do dragons like this, I like to kind of go with at least, sorry if you hear a dog groaning, she's annoyed because I'm not giving her snacks. I'm painting right now. I'm painting. You can wait. But anyway, the dog is not the point. The dog is not the point. She's just in the room. But I like to do 3 to 5 color changes. So for sure I'm starting with this dark gray, and then I'll start to lighten it at least twice. I'm probably going to lighten it more than that because, to be honest, I kind of want the webbing to be nearly white. Okay? That's my goal here. I kind of want that webbing to be almost white. And if I want that webbing to be almost white, I'm going to have a few color shifts going down here. So I'm going to have to add several different colors. And remember, you're going to have a hard time reaching some spots. They're going to be really annoying. So when you're doing, I'm not doing the entire thing in this color because what's the point? But I am getting, like, not caring if I paint too much because I'm going to be painting over, like on the scales here, going to start transitioning to a different color. So we're just going to use a large brush and not care too much. We're just going to make sure we do cover the spots we want to cover. So for this dark color, I'm getting the spines of the wing, and then I'm getting the spines of the spine. And then I'm going to do claws, and I'll take a quick look and see what else I might want to get with this particular color. But for sure, I want to do that tip of the tail. Definitely want to get the tip of the tail there. This spine on the head, sure. Yeah, that looks good. Spine on the head. Spine on the nose, okay. And then spines on the face. Yep. And I'm using a big brush, even though I could switch to a smaller brush because why not? Spines on the legs. That's a good thing to try. Remember, models like this, you are going to have a harder time reaching the interior portions of them. So, like the underside of this tail is really hard to reach. So you just do the best you can with what you've got. Because it is actually quite difficult, because your hand doesn't bend like that. So neither does your brush. So you just do the best you can. Sometimes you're not going to be able to reach a spot you want to reach. So then we're going to come and do the spikes on the leg there. Yeah, leg spikes, good. Leg spikes here. And on that side we already did leg spikes. And then I'm just going to take a moment to do the claws. And yes, I'm overpainting the claws. It doesn't matter because I'm coming back with other colors. This is my first color. It doesn't matter if I overpaint. Okay. And then we've got a foot in here that needs some claws. There we go. Claws. And then finally, we have this foot that needs some claws. So this guy's not a black dragon. He is definitely more like almost a lunar or something like that. He's going to be very pretty when he's done. Right now you can make the dragon whatever you want, by the way. You don't have to follow somebody else's pattern. So just because you bought the dragon as a red dragon model doesn't mean he has to be a red dragon. Oh. Does he have a spine on his belly? Let's check. No. Sometimes they have spines on their belly. Anyway, now we are going to let him sit and we will come back and start our next color. For now, he's just looking like that because that's how he looks. And we will lighten that color up in the next round. For now, we're just going to leave him exactly like that. Okay, we're going to walk away and then we will come back and shoot him with a different color. Right now, don't touch it. We're going to let him dry. All right, we have let that dry. Now we're going to paint. He's got two types of scales. We've lightened our paint, so we're using that same paint color. Okay, we're using the same paint color. We've just added white. So it's the same basic tone. I'm knocking all my brushes. But we're just going to add this color. And it's okay to overpaint into the area where we're going to lighten yet again. Okay. And we're going right up to this spiny area that we did in the darker color. There we go. And you just want to go slow and carefully. So kind of doing this gradient effect is really neat for these guys. And you have to kind of concentrate while you're doing it. But it's really neat for these guys because it's all actually one color. You're just brightening it up by adding the white. And when you do that, your colors end up blending really well together. And the benefit there is a couple of things. First of all, it just looks more unified. Okay, it looks like gradient instead of drastically changing color. But beyond that, there's also something to be said for just the ease of choosing your color. Because then you don't have to spend time obsessing about what color you might want to choose, right? You don't have to worry about that so much. I'm going to do his face here. Remember, we're not painting the spots where we painted the darker color. There we go. Give that a good paint. There, you've got to be careful, mostly because you just don't want to have to undo what you've already done. But remember, you can always fix it. You can always fix it. It's not that big a deal. So if you do get to the point you're like, geez, I shouldn't have painted that, it's okay. Right? You can fix it later by using your original color. There we go. Give that face a paint. Then I'm going to come down onto his legs. So I've decided I'm only going to use 3 colors. And then I'm probably going to use a silver wash, because I kind of want this guy to be a little bit magical. Okay, I want him to look kind of cool. I'm going to go all the way down. All the way down onto his nails. So I'm only going to do 3 colors, and then I'm going to do a bunch of silver, because I think that would turn out really nice. And that's what you're looking for, is you want something you like. So when you're looking at your models, just try to imagine what you would enjoy, because you're the one painting it. You're the one who has to live with it. Unless you're painting for someone else, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. So I like doing these gradients. Not everybody does, and that's okay. Just careful. And what we're going to do is we're not going to get totally crazy, only because if we try and do too much at once, we are going to end up not being able to keep our hands off of where we've already painted, right? That's what's going to end up happening. So what we're going to do is basically just do one side of him. So I'm doing that leg, this back leg, his side, and then at least some of his tail. And then we're going to let him dry. Just deciding where I can go from to get the inside of that tail. Again, things like this can be really dicey because you can't really see great. You just can't. So you do the best you can, right? That's what you do. You do the best you can. And then you just kind of live with it afterward. Because what else can you do, really? I think I can get a little closer on that inside. There we go. Paint that. Now, I could use a smaller brush, and I probably should, but I don't care. Remember, little mistakes are not always the biggest thing in the world. They're little mistakes for a reason. And they probably don't matter as much as you think they do. So, there we go. I'm just gonna get some of this tail done. I can probably get the other side of him done here. Or not. I'm just gonna go up beside the spine. I just realized that I'm gonna end up touching the leg. So let's just finish this leg here. Or at least with this color. We obviously can't finish the entire leg. But I'm just gonna get our second color on here. And that's about as good as it's gonna get for now. on that side. And then I'm just going to go up this spine. But again, it's easier to just take a break when you're looking at your pieces and you know you're going to have to get in there with your brush and you know you're not going to be able to avoid touching. Like, I'm going to end up touching more than one leg at a time here if I keep going down on that side. So I'm just going to go up his neck, and then I'm going to come back and paint, because nobody wants to completely mess up what they've already done. And that's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen if I try and do his legs in addition to what I've already done. If I try and go after these two legs on this side, I'm going to completely end up in a little bit of trouble there. So we're not going to worry about it. And remember, you don't have to be perfect when you're doing kind of these gradients. You don't have to be perfect, because they're gradients. Who is going to tell you that that's where one color starts and one color ends? So you don't have to worry about that too much. Just kind of wing it. That's what I would do. I wing it. I wing it and go, what do I like the look of? And that's how I decide. But I'm going to stop there because I know myself. If I try and paint these legs beyond just the initial check, right? If I try and do that, if I try and go inside and around on the legs, then what's going to happen is I am going to end up screwing up what I've already painted. So I'm going to end up touching this side. So we are going to sit him back down, and we will come back when he is dry, because we want to get those other legs done. In the meantime, time to take a nap. All right, that area is dry. Now we're just going to grab our same color and paint on the other side. There we go. Paint on the other side, because that will look fairly awesome. So I don't want to paint the nails that I already painted that darker color. I just want to make sure I don't do that. I want to make sure I'm just painting the stuff I want this middle color. So I am going to do 3 different colors. It's okay to overpaint onto the area. I'm going to do the lighter color. It's not okay to overpaint onto the area I already painted, because then I'll have to touch up. So let's just get that in there. There we go. Get that in there. Use a decent amount of color. I don't want to have to redo it, because that gets really annoying. Having to redo the same area multiple times is really irritating. So we're going to attempt not to do that. It's okay if I overpaint onto the rock, because the rock is going to get painted after I'm done painting the dragon. At least that's my plan. Okay, let me just take a quick peek. I'm just looking at where I painted on the other side. So I did go under this wing. So let's do that. Here. Let's link that up. And then we're also looking for spots I may have missed. Like there's a spot there. There's a spot there. Especially on scales, it's really easy to miss a spot. Alright, that is what we're leaving it as until that's dry. We'll come back and do our lightest color because I've decided he's only going to be 3 colors because he's looking cool. And that third color is also going to go on his wings unless I decide to do a 4th color for the wings. Obviously, I haven't quite made up my mind. Okay, that's pretty dry. So what we're going to do now is use a much lighter color. So again, I've just taken that same color and I've added white. So it's lighter, but still not white. So we just want it lighter. We don't necessarily want, we don't want the gradients to be like boom. Like this gradient is pretty defined, but the rest of them we don't want like that. So now I'm just going under his chin, and then I'm painting under his belly here, but it does lighten it up, just adding a little more white. That's kind of the point, right? So it can be difficult with these kind of guys to access the areas you want to access, because I have to really be careful with my brush that I'm hitting where I want to hit. And then I'm just going to do the palms of this leg because of the position he's in. There we go. Remember, you don't have to be perfect, but reaching in, one of the reasons I say don't bother being perfect is because you've really got to reach with models like this where it's difficult to get your brush in where you need to get it. So you do the best you can with what you've got, right? You try your best. And we're gonna go in there. It's okay to get some on the rock right now, like that's kind of my only option. And I'm just kind of skitzing around the spines and stuff. I don't want to hit the spines because I already painted the spines the dark color. But if I have to, I can always go in and do the spines again with that dark color. So I want to get the back of the legs, around the edge of the legs, you know, all the spots we didn't get. And this can be kind of fun because, again, these are fantasy creatures. There's no rules. So if you suddenly get the desire to hit this with a bunch of red instead, it's really not that big a deal. Because they're fantasy creatures. They do not exist. It doesn't matter as long as you're happy with it. There we go. See, I don't care as much about like the internal here, like under his belly and stuff. I don't really care as much because there's no way, like literally no way I am going to be able to get all of that. So you just do your best because there's literally no way. It's not going to happen. I am not going to be able to get all of the insides here. So that's one of the reasons I like going with base coats, because then I can at least get the color where I want it to go. There we go. Just do the inside of that leg. And we are going to have to come back, obviously, and paint the rock. But it's a good time to start thinking about what color do you want to paint the rocks. If you have, like, you have to color your base anyway. So start thinking about your base when you're doing something like this. And mostly I'm just going to ignore the base. I'm going to paint it a very flat gray, the gray I normally use for stone. I'm just going to do that and call it a day, because what I really want to do is I want to do a sepia wash on the dragon, and then I want to brighten that dragon up with a whole bunch of silver dry brushing. So I don't really want the rock to draw too much attention, right? So I do know what I'm going to do with the rock. I've kind of already decided what I want from the rock, because I want this the dragon itself, I want him to kind of, that's why there's a very, very small difference in color tone. So you can see it's not a huge difference. between that color and this one. Yes, this is a little lighter, but it's not a huge difference. And that's okay that it's not a huge difference, because I don't really want a huge difference. I'm going to come in with silver dry brushing, and I want that to make the statement. I don't necessarily, there we go. I don't necessarily want the paint job itself to make the statement. I want the silver wash to do it. So now we just gotta get in here. And then just checking one leg at a time. This leg needs more. There we go. Just gotta check all your spots. Remember, one color at a time. One color at a time. Don't try and now do the rock. You want to do one color at a time. There we go. Cover up anything that's not nail or talon. And this little area needs quite a bit of paint in there, in that groove. There we go. And what else do we need? A little bit more dark color, a little more dark. I don't have a ton left of the dark color, but I have a little, because I've been turning the dark color into light color. So because of that, I don't have a ton left of the dark color. So where I need the dark color is a little bit dicey, because I don't have a lot of it. There we go. Good enough. Doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, we're not after perfect. So my dragon is covered now. So my dragon's completely... Yes, you have to make the sound. My dragon is covered. And he's looking decent with the different color gradients. I didn't get all of the tail, though. I did not get all of the tail, but to get part of the tail, I gotta go from the inside, which is annoying, but you know, it's also fine. There we go. So now we have to let that dry. And what do we have left to do? Obviously, well, I'm gonna do these wings actually, instead of letting everything. I wasn't gonna do the wings till later, but I might as well at least do part of the wing. The danger with doing the wings is I don't want to grab in a spot I've already painted. So I was going to do the wings a little bit later, but let's just do them now. There we go. But after this, we have the rock, the face of the dragon, right? We want that face done. And then we have the wash to kind of highlight the groove. So I'm going to go with a sepia or an umber. I might go umber. I might go a little bit darker. And then I'm going to hit it with some silver dry brushing. But this is definitely not going to be my best work. I just wanted a dragon this color because I don't have one this color. I figure we can use them as a lunar dragon when we need. Because I have lots of red dragons, and I have lots of green ones, and lots of all the different colors. I've not painted a really dark dragon. I've painted a black dragon. But I don't really like painting black. I've painted a black dragon because we needed a black dragon for a campaign. But I don't actually like painting black dragons because black is not my favorite color to paint. Why? Because it kind of obscures things. So at least with lighter paints, you can see the details, right? You can see what you're looking at. So you can kind of see with a lighter paint where all the grooves are. With black, even with just your black primers, things don't really show up well because it's black, right? It's not any fun color. It's just black. I don't have any problem with black. It's just when you're painting black and it turns out that black is kind of boring because it's so one-dimensional. And so you have to do a lot of work, a lot of highlighting in order to make black not one-dimensional. So black takes more work. And this channel, we focus on quick and easy, making yourself happy with minimal work, because most people don't want to spend 6 days painting a dragon. They only want to spend an hour, hour and a half total paint time, which can be done. What did I paint last week? The wyvern I painted last week was about an hour's total paint time. My best work? No. But was he sufficient for his purposes? Yes. So I'm just deciding if I want to do the other wing at the same time or if I'm going to risk mucking up the first wing. Because what you don't want to do is have to redo something. It's better to wait and let it dry and wander off and go do something else rather than risk mucking up what you've already finished while you're waiting for it to dry. So that's my only thing right now is, and it's probably not a good idea to do the other wing, because even as I'm painting this wing, I'm dragging on the other, just because of the position, which pretty much tells me I'm going to drag on this wing while I'm painting the other side. So I can probably paint a little bit of this, honestly. There we go. But I can probably paint a little of this to start. But I don't think I can paint the other side of the wing. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to paint this one side. And then after, I will come back and paint the other side here. There we go. But yeah, I like doing the wings different. Like, I don't like one solid color for the wings, but I don't want it too busy. So typically my wings are two-toned. Even with the wyvern last week, they were bronze and green. This week I'm doing these different shades of this Payne's gray. There we go. And yes, this is a gray, even though it has a purple cast to it. And I deliberately picked a gray that had purple undertones because that would look better as I diluted the paint. Because that's what I was looking for, so. It is technically a gray. It just has purple undertones. So I'm just going to paint this bit, and then I'm going to come back and paint the rest of the other side of this particular wing. I do not think I can paint this part of the wing, the other side, without dragging on the parts I already painted on the other wing. So I'm just going to let it dry. And I might see if I can also get some of the face done. There we go. Okay, now we are actually going to let it dry, because what I don't want is to muck up. See, if I go in and paint this part, I am going to end up dragging on the other part that I've already painted. So we're just going to let that dry, and he's going to start looking spiffy when we do his face, because the face makes the dragon. We also maybe should do the horns, but we'll come back. Okay, let's get a little bit more done on our dragon. I'm actually not going to do the wing right this second. I am going to do the wing. I'm just not going to do it right this second. I am instead going to do a little yellow in the eyes. I'm going to do it in a sec. I'm doing the wing right away. I promise. I just want to come in here. This eye is a hard one to get because of the angle of the silly wing. But I just want to come in here, get these eyes done. Kind of screwed up on that one eye. That's okay. We'll fix it later. Fix it later. When you make a mistake, see, I made a mistake on that eye, but I'll fix it in a minute. So now I'm just going to, this other brush, I need some water. I'm just rejuvenating one of my paint colors here. Dried out a little bit, but it's okay. And I just want to get the horn. Just want to get that horn. So I am doing these horns. Often I do the horns in like the same color as the wing, but I figure this guy seems like really dark. And he is. He's pretty dark. So what I'm doing is switching it up and going with a lighter bone color that I'm gonna hit with a sepia wash. But I just want a little bit more contrast. So that's why I'm picking this particular color. Because I do want a little bit more contrast. And the reason why I'm doing this instead of the wing is because I knew I was going to have to grip the wing at a couple of points, because this one particular horn is not easy to get. So I have to be kind of careful because this horn is really close. Like really close. Okay. Get the other horn, but that one horn there is really close to his body, so I didn't want to get the color everywhere, and I knew I was gonna have to grip, so I did it right off the bat here before I do the wing. I'm just gonna take a look at his face again and decide if there's anything I want to do to the face. I don't think so. His mouth is closed. I'm not gonna worry about it. If his mouth was open, I would do like teeth and stuff, but I don't actually see any fangs that I care about, so I'm not gonna worry about his face. I'm gonna do a lot of sepia wash on his face to make it stand out. There we go. Get that done. Get in there. Yeah, I just wanted a slightly different color, so let's do that. Okay, the next thing I'm gonna do, and I know it sounds like I'm putting off the wing, I'm not, but I want to get this barrel here. I want to get this barrel just because I do. Yeah, I just want to get the barrel because I don't want to leave the barrel unpainted. So I'm over painting onto, I'm deciding whether or not he is sitting on gold or not, because I don't have to paint it gold, the stuff he's sitting on. Right? I simply don't have to. I could simply not. I could simply decide it's just a part of the rock. And that would be no big deal. There we go. Paint that. Do I like the way that looks? Mostly I need a little more paint on the top here. There we go. Because if I'm going to come down and paint the rock, which I'm not doing this pass. I'm not painting the rock this pass. I'm painting the rock later. But if I am going to come and paint the rock, I want the barrel painted first. There we go. Finish up this wing. Remember, he can look whatever you want him to look like. So if you don't like a certain color, you don't have to use it. Like too many times I see people like, well, I just don't like this color combo, and I did it anyway. Well, don't do it. It's yours, unless you're painting for someone else. What you want goes. What you want matters more than what other people think. Like, what do you like? Because especially when it comes to dragons, I see people who decide, well, I have to paint it exactly like the blue dragon in the book. You don't. If you don't like the way that looks, you don't like those blues, you don't like that color combination, whatever you don't like, change it. Just change it, because there's no reason for you to paint something you are not entirely happy with. Like, if you don't like it, then it's not good. If you do like it, then it's perfect. So this guy's not going to be my best work, because my best dragons I've spent hours on them. And this is probably going to be like an hour and a half total painting time when you take out all the drawing time. So when you're watching this video right now, it's probably between an hour and a half. I have had dragons that took me 4 to 5 hours. And it's not that necessarily time means you did a better job. Some things are just more complicated. Okay, so dragons are more complicated than, say, I don't know, a piece of terrain. Like, I did a few pieces of terrain lately, and none of those took anywhere near an hour. Like, most of them are like 20-30 minutes. So most of them are nowhere near the amount of time that it takes to paint a dragon. But there is a point at which, if you spend more time on it, it will just naturally be a higher quality piece. But the question becomes, do you care that much? I'm going to be honest, I don't think I do. Like, most of the time I don't. Okay, I just don't. I don't care. It doesn't matter. A lot of times things simply do not matter. We think they matter, they do not. So I'm going to start the gray for the stone. I'm going to start it. And by that I mean I just touched all that. Of course I did. But by that I mean I am going to get gray in this kind of area. I'm going to go where the gold is. I don't know if I'm going to paint it gold, to be honest. I could paint it bronze or copper. I could paint it silver. I could do silver. Pieces of silver. Who says dragons have to guard only gold? Why can't dragons guard silver? Maybe he could. But I probably am not going to do it silver, because I'm going to do silver dry brushing, and I think that would just not stand out well enough. So I think what I might end up doing, maybe, I think I actually might go with copper. It's a good question, though. It's a good thing to think about. Not everything has to be gold. Because sometimes we almost default to that. We almost default to, we want gold. In this kind, like, there's definitely some kind of treasure here under his feet. And what I'm doing right now is I'm just painting the gray around it, so I can finish painting the gray on the next pass. Because I want to be able to paint that copper, I've decided. Yeah, I like copper. I've decided it's going to be copper. I just want it to be. And then I'm also, while I'm at it, looking for anything else that I might want to highlight. Because there's a couple of other details on the rock I honestly don't think I'm really going to touch them, because I don't think I need to. I don't think it's always necessary. Like, sometimes we get carried away with highlighting each individual thing, and I don't think we really need to do that. Or at least I don't need to do that. Maybe you feel a need to do that. I don't think I do. Like, I'm not sure what the point would be. I'm not sure I care. Like, there is some detail on the rock over here, but I really just don't think it matters that much. I just don't think so. Yeah, I don't think I care about that. Sometimes you just have to muse over it a little bit here and there and decide if it's worth it to you. Because I don't think it's worth it. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you see something, you're like, man, I want to highlight that. And that's great. I love that. But a heck of a lot of the time, you spend so much time highlighting one specific thing, and it turns out you didn't need to, that it wasn't that impressive. That was just a little thing anyway, so you didn't really need to do that. So that's what I'm kind of looking out for. I don't want to waste time on something that will ultimately just not matter. Right? Like, I just don't think it'll matter in the end. So if it's not going to matter, why am I bothering? Kind of thing is the way I approach it. If nobody's going to notice, if I'm not even going to notice and I'm the one that painted it, what's the point? So there are definitely a couple of things on the rock that I'm just painting gray, and I'm just ignoring them. I'm not even trying. I'm not even trying to highlight them in any way. I don't want them highlighted. There's a couple of... It's not that I can't highlight them. I could if I wanted to. But what would be the point? Now, if you see something you want to highlight, then you should 100% do that. You should absolutely highlight the things that catch your attention. The things that you think should be highlighted. Okay, that's 100% something you should do, because remember, it's your piece. But, like, if I'm seeing a little bit of bone, right? Like, I see a little bit of bone up here. It's so little, like, I can tell it's bone because of the angle I'm looking at and the way I can move the piece around, and I can tell that it's bone. I'm not sure a casual looker will see that or even care about that. So that's when you kind of have to make a judgment call. Like, does it really matter? And in this case, I don't think it does. Okay? I do not think it's going to matter. So, I know I said I wasn't painting the entire rock. I lied. I'm painting the whole rock. Just so that I can say it's done. Then it's finished and I don't have to worry about it. But getting your base painted is a big deal because the bases are annoying. It's just because the base is never the coolest part, right? So sometimes what happens is you get to nearing the end and the only thing you haven't painted is the base. So my recommendation is don't paint the base right away necessarily unless you have to, but don't leave it till the end either. Kind of try to paint that base in the middle. You'll like it better because otherwise you're going to be spending a lot of time at the end doing your base, and you probably don't want that. Okay, I'm just going to sit him down and spin him so I can see if there's, like, right there, because now I'm looking from a different angle. Anything I care about is what I'm looking for, because sometimes you just don't care, and that's fine too. There we go. But we are going to let that go, except I am going to fix that little mistake I made with just a dollop. There is a mistake under the eye. There. And just to make sure they look the same, I run that color under the eye. There we go. There. We're going to let him dry, and we will come back, finish up that base. And that's basically where I'm at, because it's almost time to start giving the dragon some real detail using a wash. But we're not there yet. So let's get there. All right. I am going to get in here with a smaller brush and hit some of what I've decided are copper coins. I've decided I'm sick of using gold all the time, which we all do. Let's face it, we all use gold. So instead, I'm going to use copper. Because copper's awesome, and I find we don't really use copper enough. Let's face it, we all do it. We see coins, we go, those are gold coins. And I do that too. So I'm just going to do the coins in copper because I think that's cool. Be nice to have copper this time around. Just need to use my light a little bit to see. My light's at a bad angle for me. Just because of where I'm sitting. But yeah. Try to have your light at a better angle than mine. It's just because of where I'm sitting and how I'm filming. I end up not being able to see great. So, just gonna get all these coins. See, I like the copper. I'm glad I went with copper instead of something else. I am glad I did that. There we go. And then I'm going to darken everything down with a sepia wash, which is going to take several passes. Because when I do my wash, I'm going to want it to sit in all of these different crevices. And the thing with doing a wash is it sits in crevices based on gravity. So I'm going to have to turn this guy all which ways in order to get him properly covered in the wash. Okay, so that's what's going to end up happening is I'm going to have to use like some styrofoam or something to support him so that I can get him where he needs to go. Okay, we don't want to paint the foot. We just want to paint the copper. Just want to paint the copper, not the dragon foot. You gotta watch. You gotta watch, and it's tricky getting in here. So this is probably the hardest place to get in because you can't come at it from the top, and the sides have dragon legs. There's dragon legs in the way. So you do the best you can. Luckily, you're not really going to see too much of in here. But you still need to make sure that you are covering it. But it won't matter if I don't cover it perfectly, because frankly, it's very difficult to see in there. Like, you can't really tell. So don't stress about parts that you're just never going to see. Right? Just don't worry about it as much as you think you should worry about it. Because if you're not going to see it, you're not going to care. Right? Like, in time, you'll forget that maybe you didn't perfectly paint the copper underneath. Right? In time, you'll forget that. So, let's just get that. I also want a little bit of a different color. I'm just deciding. I want something that has some contrast, but I think I'm going to take a little bit of blue, mix it with a little bit of gray, and just kind of just very lightly draw little lines here. I like blue. I'm in a blue mood. I want blue. So again, this is not super easy to do because of his head. It looks like it should be easy. And I'm going to touch up that brown in a minute. By in a minute, I mean when it's dry. There we go. Actually, I might be able to touch it up now. I might be able to touch it up a little bit now if I have some drier brown. Yeah, I can touch it up now. Sometimes you can do that. I mean, yeah, you should wait, but sometimes you can pull it off if you have a paint that's dried a little bit, because then it's not as basically as flowy. There we go. So now we have to let that dry because I do want to do the sepia wash next, and a sepia wash is only going to work once we have that entire thing dry. Because if you put washes on wet paint, you wipe away your paint. So let's let him dry, then we'll come back. Well, dragons are kind of tricky when it comes to washing because, frankly, they've got kind of funky angles, right? They've got really funky angles. So what we end up having to do is having to get in there at really odd angles, which is what I'm trying to do now. So I'm getting in there with a fairly thick wash because that's what I'm trying to do, is get this wash to drip down. And we want it kind of everywhere, but right now I'm just trying to get it on the underneath, right? I'm just trying to get it under here because now it's time to really deepen that dragon, at least the lighter areas. The darker areas, we'll worry about that later, but the lighter areas we're darkening with this. I'm actually using an umber wash. I decided I wanted to use umber instead of sepia, and I was kind of debating between the two, but let me just get this horn here underneath. But I was kind of debating whether I wanted to do an umber or a sepia, and ultimately I figured out, you know, umber's just going to work a little bit better because it's darker. So that's what I'm doing. It's just using an umber wash, and you want to get all the under areas first, and I'm going to have to turn him a couple of times because I don't have any other options. The gravity itself is just going to pull him the way you don't, the wash anyway, it's going to pull the wash the way you don't want it to go. So because it's going to pull the wash in the direction you don't want it to go, you have to turn your model upside down to get all those undercarriage areas. Just because I want those undercarriage areas really to stand out, and they're not gonna if they're not highlighted. So we're gonna use that umber wash on all of the areas, like literally all of them. We're going to do it over the entire model, the rock and everything, but I just am trying to get the under areas, darken them up quite a bit. So that's all I'm gonna do for right this second. I'm going to turn him so I can do his wings properly. I'll have to do the wings in 2 separate passes. Really, I'm gonna have to do the wings in 2 separate passes, but that's okay. And then I can stand him upright and do him correctly. And then he will be properly washed and he'll look pretty good. Really, we're dirtying him up. Dragons aren't known to be the cleanest after all. So that's the whole point here. We're dirtying him up. We'll come back when that's dried. All right. He has pretty much dried. He doesn't have to be 100% because the glaze will stay where it is. So you notice I'm actually using a fairly thick wash here, and that's because I do want it to actually show up really well. And I'm only doing 2 sides of the wings. And the reason I'm only doing 2 sides of the wings is because I want it to stay. I want it to stay, not flow off. I want it to stay in all these little grooves. So I know it looks really dark. It doesn't dry that dark. Okay, it simply does not dry that dark. Right? It falls into those grooves and then starts to evaporate. So we're not being careful about where we put the glaze, the wash, because it's literally going everywhere. Okay, this is going everywhere, and then we're going to use a silver dry brush technique in order to lift the areas we want lifted. Right now, we're just basically bringing the dragon back down. Bring the dragon back down, making him look gross, making him look worn and old and used. That's what we want. We want him not looking his best, basically. Okay, we basically want him looking like he's seen better days. And he should look like that, because right now he looks really disgusting. But what happens is this all sinks down, and it doesn't disappear, but it does pull into those crevices as it dries. And so the original color still comes through. You can see the original color does come through. What's happening is it's just allowing those crevices to show up, because too many of those crevices just don't show up at all. So that's what we're doing here. And a little bit more on this rock on this side. And then what we'll do is we'll flip them over and we'll get some wash on the other side. And then after that, what we'll do is stand him up and get the last couple of spots that we wouldn't have gotten. But he'll just look more realistic, he'll have more movement to him simply by adding the wash. And washes are simple, they're easy. They're something I absolutely recommend to a beginner because they're just so much easier than the other techniques of giving definition to your piece. But we'll come back as soon as he's dry and then keep going. Well, that's looking pretty good so far. I'm liking the way it's coming together. So now we're going to flip it over. Notice how dark it is on that side. Turn it over and look at how light it is. So I want that darker look. Maybe you don't want a darker look in yours, if you're even painting something similar. Maybe you're not. That's fine too. But if you don't want a darker look, then you would use a much lighter wash or a thinner wash. I do want this to be fairly dark. I want to darken it up. That's why I went so light with my final colors, because I wanted to really be able to darken it, but I wanted to start with that lighter color. So I'm going to do this, and then what's going to end up happening is I'm going to end up flipping him so he stands upright and doing one final pass where I couldn't get before with him laying on his side, because I want this wash, especially here, like I'm really dirtying up all this bronze. And I know sometimes it seems like, well, why do you bother doing that if you already lightened it so much by using lighter colors? It's because I want the dimension. Okay, that's how you get dimension, is by adding the washes and then using dry brushing. And I am going to use the dry brushing. I'm 100% going to use the dry brushing. So that's one of the reasons why I'm darkening him so much, because I do want to be able to use all that dry brushing. I think it's going to be fantastic when it's done. It's going to be, I want this guy to look both aged and kind of muddy. At the same time, I'm going to use a silver wash to lift him and make him quite impressive. You have to decide what look you're going for. Because I could have done a gold wash. I really want these wings gross. That's what I want. But I could have done a gold wash and then a silver airbrush or dry brush. And then that would give me a more refined look. But I don't want that. I want something quite dark. Okay, this guy is not a good guy. This guy is going into one of our campaigns and he's not a good guy. So I want him to look really dark and gross. And that is about it for that side. We will have one more pass to make, and then we will be dry brushing. So right now we're just going to let it sit like that till that is dry. Then we'll stand them up and do another pass. Okay, let's stand him up. And I'm just going to hit the couple of places that I didn't get before because he was lying down. So these little top bits, you know, the couple of spots I was not able to get. And I want to hit the copper again with that copper pretty dark. Top of these legs, that kind of thing. I want to get in here, which you never seem to be able to get until they're standing up right in between the wings like this. But you just want to make sure you hit all the spots where you actually want to darken them. If there is a spot that you do not want to darken your model, don't hit it, or hit it with a lighter wash. Because this will, especially with the kind of wash, the dark, thick wash I'm using, it will, absolutely will, sit there and darken your wash. So you definitely want to make sure you're putting wash where you want it and not just slamming it on randomly. Okay, you definitely want to hit that model only where you want. Now I want quite a bit of this wash because that's the look I want. Again, other people don't have to like it. Like, you may not like what I'm doing with this model, but he is going to fit the campaign I'm painting him for. So we actually play, typically we play D&D, and because we play, a lot of times I am painting a model specifically with a campaign in mind. So I know what campaign he's going to be used for. I know what I want him to look like in that campaign. And I have already painted the terrain pieces he's going to be basically hanging out with during that particular scene. So I know that I want him pretty darkened up. And I don't think I've missed anything except here under the wing. Anything else that I want to darken? Side of the neck there. Side of the rock, top of the feet. Okay, now we're just going to let that dry before we actually come in and start dry brushing stuff. Remember, before you dry brush, he's got to be completely dry. So that's what we're waiting for. Well, now it is time to lift him with a little bit of dry brushing. And remember, when we dry brush, you want pretty much no paint on your brush. Almost no paint on your brush. You don't want a cloud, you just want a haze. So a little bit of paint. If you think you have not enough paint, you have too much. So we're just going to dry brush. Remember, dry brushing is always done with an entirely dry brush. And you tap your brush off. I use a paper towel, but you could use a cloth or whatever. But you always make sure you have very little paint left on your brush. And this just brightens him back up. And I often get the question, why do you dim him down with the wash if you're just going to brighten him back up again with a dry brush? Well, it gives him dimension. And remember, you're doing light strokes with the dry brush, so you're only hitting those elevated places. Okay, you're not hitting those places that are in the recesses where that wash is sitting. And we can dry brush the entire guy. which I might. I'm thinking about it. But for the most part, I'm just starting with the wings, hitting him with some dry brushing there, just because I don't want to cover up that color. Okay, I don't want to cover up that Payne's gray we started with. I just want to highlight and accent that color. And there's nothing wrong with dimming him down just to brighten him back up again. That's actually an important technique, just to give you a little bit of dimension, a little bit of movement. So washing and dry brushing are not difficult. Airbrushing is harder. I've had people ask about airbrushing. I might eventually do an airbrushing tutorial, but I'm going to be honest, airbrushing is not that fun. Okay, it's not that quick. It's not that easy. It's a difficult skill to master. And can I do it? Yes. Do I enjoy it? Not really. It's one of those things that's not easy to do, and I don't necessarily recommend to a beginner. Okay? I just don't. It's one of those very tricky techniques that takes a while to learn. And because it takes so long to learn, I really just don't recommend it. Get in there. There we go. That was actually tricky because I didn't want to hit the horn. I don't want to hit the horn. I don't want to put silver on the horns. Those horns, I still want them to stay dark and gross. I do not want the horns brightened at all. So we're just watching that we don't go onto the horn. And I don't want to brighten up the rock. I want to brighten up like the nails. So you hit them a little bit. I want to brighten up on the backs of his shoulders there, on the back of his knees and stuff. I want to brighten that up with a little bit of silver. Basically the places where I hit with the darker color, I want to hit with the silver. And very little silver, and I'm going to just brush the top of his legs here, because I like the way that area reflects light. But what you're doing is you're just brightening up some of the places that you took down earlier. And it just gives you some movement, gives you some beauty. It makes it look really cool, but you're not covering up that initial color, right? You're just adding basically a haze, in this case of silver. And then I'm just going to start hitting the scales very lightly. The scales are not going to get as much. Just a very, very light, just to lift him a little and just do his face a little bit. We don't want real silver, right? If I wanted him real silver, I would have painted him silver. I would not have done the Payne's gray. I would have started with a silver. But we don't want that. We want him deep and glowy and pretty. But we still want that deep color, and that deep color means you got to go dark first. And then I think I will hit the wings just a little bit. Not much. Just barely hitting the wings. Just to give them some shimmer. Just a little bit of shimmer. Other side. Dry brushing's easier than the actual painting in regards to needing to wait for it to dry. Because first of all, it dries really quick. Because remember, you're using a pretty dry paint to start. So you don't have to worry too much about that. It dries pretty quick and it's easy to handle because you're generally not dry brushing the entire thing. More of a haze on these ones. See, it just gives you pretty little lifting haze. There we go. But gently with your dry brushing. You don't want to overwhelm what you already did. Right? We don't want to cover what we did. We just want to highlight it. Well, I think I'm satisfied with that mostly. His tail here. I want his tail to gleam a little more. There we go. And the beauty of dry brushing is you don't really need to worry about coverage because you're not covering anything. So we're going to let him dry, see how he looks, and we might very well be done with him because I'm kind of liking how that looks. Except I'm just going to quickly grab a little, I just want to do a little something. I know I said I was done, but I just want a little bronze. I'm just doing a bronze cast on his horns. I just switched to bronze. I just want to, just a little bit. Just to give, I just switched because I still had some bronze on my palette. Just a little bit of bronze. Just to give him a little bit of a bronze cast. See, we're not painting it bronze. What we're doing is just adding a bit of a cast to it. There we go. Now that looks good. I like that now. I think I'm pretty happy with him. I want him to look dark and dirty, but menacing. So, I think I'm happy with that, but we'll come back when he's fully dry and see if that really works out. And there we go. I am happy with how he turned out. Is he perfect? No. You're never going to achieve perfect. So don't worry about perfection too much. Worry about what you like. So he will fit in perfectly with the campaign we're planning. And that's what matters. We play a lot of D&D, and I am looking for something that will fit an upcoming scenario. And he'll be perfect. That's about it for us today. I hope you'll be back with us next time. Bye!